Hello, everyone in the United States and Israel and Palestine, other places in the world. As people come in, I just want to welcome you to the latest in Partners for Progressive Israel's webinar series, Conversations with Israel and Palestine. My name is Rabbi Margot Hughes Robinson. I'm the Executive Director of Partners for Progressive Israel. And before we formally move into our conversation today, I just want to share a couple words about PPI. We're an American nonprofit dedicated to the achievement of a durable and just peace between Israel and its neighbors, which includes an end to Israel's occupation based on a two-state solution. Partner supports Israelis and Palestinians working to ensure social justice, civil rights, Jewish-Palestinian partnership, and equality for all inhabitants in the land. So in short, we connect American progressives, like many people on this call, in the Jewish community and beyond, to progressive leaders and movements on the ground. We're really glad to be bringing this webinar to you all for free. If you enjoy it and you want to support more programming like this, please visit progressiveisrael.org to make a contribution. I'll note also this webinar is part of our month-long matching grant campaign focused on ending ethnic cleansing in the West Bank, and all of our donations through the month of February are actually going to be matched thanks to a very generous anonymous donor. And I also want to take a minute to thank my colleague Ron Skolnick, who coordinates these webinars on behalf of PPI. A quick note about the chat versus the Q&A. The chat is open, and so is the Q&A box. You can find the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. The chat usually pops out on this side. Questions should be in the Q&A. The chat is a great place to say hi to people. Tell us where you're from, where you're zooming in from. But if you want questions for our moderator today, please put them in the Q&A box. If someone's already asked the question that you would like to also ask, you can upvote it and give it a thumbs up so we know to ask it sooner. So let me introduce our panel in brief, and then I will turn it over to our fabulous moderator, Gili Getz. So Ziv Stahl is the executive director of Yesh, Volunteers for Human Rights, an Israeli organization working to protect the human rights of Palestinians in the West Bank by documenting, collecting, and disseminating reliable and updated information regarding systematic human rights violations in the occupied Palestinian territory. Ziv has been with Yesh since 2010, serving most recently as director of the research department until 2022, when she became the director. Ziv was born in Kibbutz Kfar Aza and was visiting her family in the kibbutz on October 7th. Her sister-in-law of blessed memory was murdered in the attack. Ziv holds a master's degree in political science from Tel Aviv University. She's a member of the board of directors, both of the Akivot Institute for the Study of the Israeli-Palestinian Conflict and of Zazim Community Action. Be on the lookout for some fun Partners Zazim collaboration actually coming in the next few months. She's the author of many reports and papers published by Yesh, including, and we'll link them in the chat, The Silent Overhaul, Changing the Nature of Israeli Control in the West Bank in 2024 as a co-author, as well as in 23, What Israel's 37th Government's Guiding Principles and Coalition Agreements Mean for the West Bank. Thank you for being with us, Steve. Amira Musallam is a Palestinian Christian peace activist and head of mission and co-founder of Unarmed Civilian Protection in Palestine, UCPiP, which is an initiative coordinating protective presence, documentation, and international advocacy in high-risk Palestinian communities in the West Bank. She has over 9 years of experience in project management and fundraising and has worked with Musallam, the Holy Land Trust, and international civil society networks advocating for civilian protection and accountability. She was a member of the 2024 assessment team that produced the feasibility report on large-scale UCP, unarmed civilian protection deployment in Palestine, and her lifelong commitment to nonviolence began in her youth after experiencing violence firsthand. She has since dedicated herself to resisting land seizures, supporting threatened communities, and building global solidarity to challenge impunity. She's spoken at the United Nations, engages policymakers internationally, and centers the voices of Palestinian women and families facing dispossession and war. And in 2025, she was awarded the Tannenbaum Peacemaker in Action Award. And last but not least, our fabulous moderator, Gili Getz, an Israeli-American photojournalist, actor, and peace activist. He serves both on the Partners Board and as president of American Friends for Combatants for Peace, a joint Israeli-Palestinian movement. And following October 7th, he co-founded Israelis for Peace, advocating for the freedom, safety, dignity, and humanity of both Israelis and Palestinians. He's best known for his extensive documentation of Jewish American political activism and contributes regularly to Jewish and Israeli media, as well as the Jewish justice movement. He served as a military photographer in the IDF, later as a news editor for Ynet, and you may have seen his one-man play, The Forbidden Conversation, which explores the complexities of how Israel and Palestine are discussed within American Jewish communities, and he executive produced the film Israelism, which follows the transformation of young American Jews as they encounter the Palestinian experience, often hidden from them, and he's currently exhibiting his new photography series, Osim Shalom. I will now hand things over to Gili to get started. Thank you all again for joining us.
Thank you so much, Robbie Margot, and thank you, Ron, for all the organizing of the webinar. Thank you, everyone, for being here. These are really, really difficult times on so many fronts, and we really, truly appreciate you joining us today. On those watching the recording from wherever you are, it is always strengthening to be together, especially now. Today, we will focus on the development and the dire situation in the West Bank and try to better understand the new Israeli government's announcement of dramatic restructuring of property registration and construction in the West Bank, a move that expands and accelerates the ongoing violent annexation process. The situation on the ground in the West Bank is deteriorating in truly alarming ways. We are honored today to have two courageous, inspiring human rights leaders from Israel Palestine who will help a bit better understand this the reality and what's going on. Every day we're flooded with videos and stories of settler and state violence and terror, part of this ongoing campaign of ethnic cleansing and forced displacement of farming communities in Area C, which makes about 60% of the West Bank. The right-wing extremist Israeli government, and specifically the Minister of Finance and Occupation, Bezalel Smotrich, who said this week that he's going to encourage migration of Palestinians from the West Bank and Gaza, has accelerated a process of violent annexation through forced expulsions of these farming communities in areas like the South Hebron Hills, Masafariata, Jordan Valley. Many of these communities were already displaced in 1948 or 1967. Palestinians mostly experienced this as a continuation of the Nakba. These efforts are systemic and widespread. They use a variety of violent and bureaucratic methods through the army, police, settlers, and civil administration to make life unbearable, dangerous, and at times deadly for marginalized, poor Palestinian Bedouin farming communities who stand in the path of settler takeover of the West Bank. The apparent aim is to push Palestinians into Area A, that's 18% of the West Bank, shrinking their presence and fragmenting in these enclaves. Just last month, the residents of Ras Al Ouja in the southern Jordan Valley, Palestinian herding communities in that part of the valley fled after 2 years of relentless settler and military terror and harassment, adding to a growing number of communities that are already displaced and expelled. Just to ground us in some numbers from Peace Now and some other monitoring organizations, these are numbers are for 2025. 2025, 22 Palestinian communities were fully or partially displaced due to settler violence. 1,800, including 1,828 incidents of settler attacks resulting in bodily injury or property damage. 9 Palestinians were killed by settlers and hundreds injured. 1,269 Palestinian structures were demolished in Area C. At the same time, we see settlers expansion. We see illegal outposts being normalized, 54 new official settlements, 86 new outposts. The methods for this campaign are many. They include establishment of illegal outposts. Those serve as launching pads for further violence, arson, theft, beating, intimidation, destruction of property, roads blocks, electricity cables cut, water supplies damaged, livestock stolen and poisoned, movement is restrictions, the ability of Palestinians to work their land and sustain their lives is systematically undermined. Troubled Israeli youth and even minors are often weaponized and sent to carry out these attacks, while soldiers stand by, at times observing, at times facilitating, at times actively participating, almost with unity. And sometimes this violence results in murder, like in the case of my friend extraordinary human being, a teacher, a writer, an organizer, Alda Hatalin from the village of El Khair, who is still being terrorized. He was killed in broad daylight on camera by a known Israeli extremist who invaded his village. Auda filmed his own murder. The murderer was released right away, but thankfully we got word that he will face a trial, but nothing will bring Auda back. It's heartbreaking. People in the villages are scared. They're scared to leave their homes. They're scared from the next attack. Things are really, really difficult. Despite almost no meaningful coverage of this reality in much of the Israeli media, Israeli society is still traumatized after October 7, rise of authoritarianism, corruption, neglect, a government that doesn't take accountability for anything, including the massacre. Many still prominent Israeli leaders have spoken on this, including former Prime Minister Ehud Olmert and former Defense Minister and head of the military Bughi Ya'alon, who warned that this violence not only devastating to Palestinians, but fundamentally harmful to Israeli security. They described the collapse of the rule of law, moral unraveling, and growing international isolation. Ya'alon even invoked the warning of Yeshayahu Leibovich about what the prolonged occupation would do to Israel, would do to Judaism, would do to all of us. And Olmert called for international pressure, unusual for Israeli leader to do that. Members of the Knesset, such as Gilad Kariv, Ofer Kasif, Ayman Uda, have been vocal about this, physically present, but they have little power to stop what's unfolding. Trump also spoke against this, but didn't do anything virtually. And also, before we go, who organize Israelis, diaspora Jews, and internationals to provide protective presence in these villages, work that is extremely needed right now, including Rabbis for Human Rights in Israel, Looking Occupation in the Eye, Jordan Valley activists, CJNV, the Center for Jewish Nonviolence, Peace Now, Torah Tzedek, and of course, Unarmed Civil Protection in Palestine. So I'm so grateful to have both of you here. Let's start with Amira, who leads Unarmed Civilian Protection in Palestine in this incredible work. So, Amira, can we begin and just start with what's the situation like I know in northern Jordan Valley, and give us a sense of where we are and what's going on in the field.
Oh, so you said most of the, like you gave a bigger picture about the situation, but I will go more deeper and give you more concrete examples of what's happening, what's really happening in the West Bank. So instead of forcing people out, just bringing, the IDF jeeps and like kicking people out or killing them or whatever, they are using this tool, which is called settler. And unfortunately, these settlers, a lot of them, and in a lot of places and incidents, and every day we see them, they are not even adults, they are like really little kids. And most of these kids, and I have a personal experience with one of them, they are kids at risk in Israel. So the system, instead of taking care of them, because they are kids at risk, because they are problematic kids, they have problems, they have psychological problems, what they do, they bring them into the West Bank, brainwashed and ready to fight us. Brainwashed that this land is for Jews, this is the promised land, and no Arabs should be living there. And that's what they believe. And a little kid, um, if he's brainwashed, nobody can do anything about it. And then they are just using the herding, like pastoral system, doing the same like we do. This is our life in the outskirts of the cities. That's what we do. Our farmers, our Bedouins, that's what they do. They go to the outskirts of the areas to herd their sheep. So they started using this method to attack us. So they come to our villages, to our Bedouin communities. Of course, the most targeted and the most vulnerable areas are the Bedouins, because it's not structured houses that they live in. It's like really very basic houses and sometimes tents that they live in. And they start, instead of just attacking them and demolishing their tents or their houses, they bring their herds and start trespassing their properties, their tents, their houses, whatever structure is there. And day by day, people started, for example, men not going to their work because they have to protect their family. Then kids were not able to go to school in a lot of incidents. Like lots of kids stopped going to school, or they have to have specific transportation to take them to school. Normally, those Bedouins you would see them in the streets walking to the school, like kilometers in the morning, and then going back in the afternoon. But now, and this, of course, didn't start the 7th of October. Everybody thinks that settler violence started the 7th of October, as for the 7th of October as a result of, as a revenge, but it's not true. A settler violence or the state-backed violence started much, much more before that. Like, for example, Ras Al Oja, Ras Al Ain Al Oja, it started 2 years and a half ago, before the 7th of October, where these kids started coming, using the water resources, even cutting water resources to the community. So the communities couldn't have access to water. And every time water trucks would come to supply water, they would attack even the trucks. Then they started bringing their sheep inside the communities, and then mixing the settlers' sheep with the community sheep, and then stealing the community sheep. And then we would call the police or the army to tell them, even with all the evidence, with the cameras, everything we had, all the kind of evidence for the police and army to show them who is the one who stole, who is, where did it go, even like some sheep had chips, put in them, and like they were able to know where these sheep went. And of course, the system didn't do anything. And at the beginning, we thought it's only settlers, it's only few individuals who, who are extreme, who don't like Palestinians, who don't want Palestinians to exist. But then, little by little, and especially after Ben Gvir and Smotrich took over the government, we saw that it's not an individual who decided suddenly that he wants to kick all Palestinians out of the area. It's a state-backed violence and terrorism. And now, right now, while I'm sitting here and talking to you, we see it's just crazy. It's just every moment, every 5 minutes, I get a phone call like, hey, can you help us? We are being attacked. Or, hey, can you help us? A new outpost is being built beside our community. Hey, please, we cannot go out of our community because we are being attacked. And that's where protective presence comes. We send our activists, our groups, individuals, Israelis and internationals. They go into the field and they do kind of interpositioning between the settlers and the Palestinian community. But Gili, protective presence without accountability doesn't really work. Like, yes, we, for example, Mistaqlim, or looking the occupation in the eye, were there from the beginning at Ras Al Auja. We joined them last July, right? And we were there 24/7. We were sleeping, eating with the community, doing all the activities with them. When we were called, we would go and like join, do all kind of methods of protective presence. But then at the end, they had to flee. They had to flee because it was impossible for them to live anymore there, because settlers towards the end of the year 2025, they decided to plow the land just beside the families, and 25 families didn't have access to their houses. They plowed the land, they cut the electricities, they didn't allow any kind of water trucks to come in. So even with protective presence, we were there with them. We were like doing 24/7 protective presence with them. But then they can't live like this. Like, imagine yourself, in your house sitting. You can't even go outside of your doorsteps because any moment settlers can come and attack you. And even without attacking you, they can accuse you of anything. They can accuse you of stealing their camel. Imagine stealing a camel, like you would see a camel that is stolen. But even with that, they can accuse you of that, and the police would immediately come and believe them. But when we call the police to come because these settlers are doing something wrong or like stealing, or, the police come and arrest us, arrest the activists, arrest the Palestinians who are there. So it's horrifying. And the other thing, for those who don't know, the settlers are the same like the IDF. So the same settler would come to the community with the IDF uniform, wearing his M16, and he would speak as an army, as a IDF. After half an hour, you would see him as a settler attacking you. So like the protector is the same as the terrorist. So we don't know what to do anymore. But we promised these communities to stay, even for those who were expelled, who left, who were afraid, who were really ethnically cleansed. We stayed for them, and we are following them everywhere they go. And even like people from Ras Al Oja who were expelled, they are now calling us that they are being attacked in the different area. So what we really see in the West Bank, it's not only settler violence, as I said before. It's a system to ethnically cleanse all of us, pushing all of us to Area A, and then imagine all these people living in 18% of the West Bank. It's impossible. Like, come to Bethlehem, come to see the traffic, because of everybody now is going to live in the city, and there is not enough space, not enough roads, not enough buildings, not enough places for you to live. And at the end, you will decide to leave. And then they will tell you, oh, we didn't force them to leave. They left by themselves. They immigrated. No, we didn't immigrate because we want to immigrate, because it's unbearable to live anymore here. Like in Bethlehem alone, I can give you a specific number. I got it even from the church. Last year, up until February or March 2025, we had 450 families who immigrated completely forever from Bethlehem area only. Christian families from Bethlehem area only, because it's impossible. No work, no place to go. Even on my day off, I want to take my son on a day trip to the near Bethlehem and near our villages, and I can't. It's unsafe anymore. Settlers are everywhere attacking us. If it's not the settler, it's the IDF. If it's not the IDF, it's the police. So we're really stuck. And now you can not only see it in Area C, like we have been seeing it for the past 2 years. Now you can see it in Area B, and then in Area A. I just posted like yesterday a video of 3 settlers going inside the city of Jericho, Area A, in Ain al-Sultan, which is a spring that gives water to all Jericho. And they were bathing inside Area A, naked, in front of everyone who was passing from there. And it's Area A. And imagine that I want to talk to them, or I want to kick them out because it's Area A. It's dangerous for Israelis, supposedly, but they are there. So, and in Silwad, which is another village in near Ramallah, yesterday the army entered the village. The village is not really a poor village. It's like a very developed village with lots of villas and big houses. And most of these people live like in the diaspora, but they have houses in Ramallah area. They gave them demolishing orders, and they gave them only 7 days to leave, to empty the houses. Area B, since when Area B there is demolishing orders, So we're not now dealing only with settler violence. It's the whole system forcing us out and taking over the West Bank. And this is only, of course, just few examples. I can now sit and talk until the morning about so many examples, so many incidents, so many communities that are being attacked. And like Jordan Valley, nobody is left there. Only few communities here and there, but the biggest community was Ras Al Oja with 130 families, around 700 people are gone, So, yeah.
And sometimes even, the court says they can stay, they have to leave because of this ongoing terrorism. And, I spoken to like human rights lawyers, they say this, it used to be that there was somebody to call, somebody a commander or somebody in the government or somebody, and now there's no one to call. The system is completely in sync about this ethnic cleansing project. And some of the soldiers that come from Gaza, experiencing mass killing, come and they're settlers, and they come as soldiers. I mean, just the mindset of that is extremely horrifying. And let me also add, it's much harder to cover these areas and much less access to media and journalists and activists. It just the crackdown is all around. And so let me ask Ziv, who Yesh has done an incredible work at trying to document what is happening and bring it to the attention. Ziv, if we can start maybe with explaining to us what exactly happened in the last week with these new laws that the cabinet approved and their relationship to area A and B. I mean, area C, because there's what I noticed about the occupation is that when there's no accountability for one crime, it just balloons into another crime. It's almost like they see what they can get away with, which is pretty much everything at this point, and then they just escalate those very techniques. So if you can give us a sense of what just happened this week with
But
Smotrich
then I'd say it's the most difficult thing to explain. So you jumped right to the. So what happened last week is that, or this week on Sunday, the government of Israel approved a previous cabinet decision from May, basically saying that Israel will unfreeze the land registry in the West Bank that was freezed in '68, right after the occupation. And it was freezed for many reasons. The most, I would say, dominant one is the fact that registering land is a deed done by a sovereign, permanent sovereign. And Israel didn't see itself at the beginning as a permanent sovereign of the West Bank. It actually tried to, at least at the beginning, to create some sort of a legal under international law, legal framework of occupation, which is temporary. And then the government, the Israeli government, doesn't control directly the occupied territory, but it is actually appointed the military to be the replacement, the temporary replacement of a sovereign. So the legislator and the executing power in the West Bank should actually be the military and not the government. The government is never directly legislating over the West Bank. So what happened in this decision on Sunday is not a law, actually. It's a government decision ordering the military commander to legislate the renewal of the land registry in the West Bank. And the implications of that is that Israel will start registering lands, whether it's private lands on names of specific allegedly owners of land, or on the name of the state, the Israeli state, and then allocate it to settlements. In very simple words, it is another tool that will make it much easier for the settlement expansion and the settlement enterprise to spread around and take over more and more land of Palestinians, pushing away Palestinians from the land. It also violates a lot of rights. There's a lot of problematic issues, legally speaking, with absentees, people who fled the country after the occupation and wasn't allowed to return. And then they own some land. They cannot come and prove it now, so they will probably lose the rights on the land. It's a problem for people who are living here, or having difficulties cultivating the land, like Amira explained before, and then they can lose the right over the land, and then settlers can come and claim that they are the rightful owners of the land. And we all know that the establishment and the way they are going to execute this registry is also going to be very discriminatory and very in favor of settlers and not so in favor of Palestinians, to say the least. So this is what happened. Maybe I want to go a little bit to the kind of bigger picture. So Amira said settler violence is a tool, and I think it's important to understand what is the other tool. So we look at it as a very effective combination of two kind of parallel but working together very, very well processes that Israel is leading, and one is on the ground with the settlers and everything that's done on the ground. But the other is in the government and in the Knesset. And this is basically changing the entire way or the entire system of how Israel controls the West Bank. And it's done through some very bureaucratic, like the one that I just explained, but many, many other steps. This is very big, the land registry. But we had also other big steps that has been taken, basically to change the way Israel has ruled the West Bank so far, and moving from a framework of occupation to annexation and full sovereignty of Israel over the West Bank. I think the main change that we all know about and seen is with the creation of the government, appointing Smotrich to be another minister in the Ministry of Defense, basically making himself being the Minister of Occupation or Annexation, and establishing the Settlement Administration, which is basically now Smotrich is trying to complete a shift of taking away the powers from the military, from the civil administration, and putting it in the hands of Smotrich, the administrative, the settlement administration, the deputy of the head of the civil administration, which he appointed, and he is a civilian, not a soldier or not a military guy. And in that aspect, they are now controlling almost any aspect of life in the West Bank. Very, simple things like electricity or environment, but also building and construction, permits. A lot of what we see happening is now in the control of Smotrich. So when Amira asks since when they are doing demolitions in area B, the answer is since Smotrich is in charge, and he's done it on purpose. So he's kind of like taking away many of the barriers and the obstacles and the little constraint the military had before. It's not that I was a big fan of what happened before Smotrich came along, right? But right now we see everything kind of on steroids and shamelessly happening. So it's everything. They have no limits. It's very like grab as much as you can before election. And this all leads to kind of a revolution in not only the way Israel controls, like in theory or legally controls, but also on the ground. So if we can connect the two, what we've seen yesterday and also the week before, there was another cabinet decision, which makes it easier to take over land in many areas, including area A and B. The point is basically to change the regime of the lands of the West Bank, because at the bottom line, ultimately, this is a dispute, or not a dispute, a war over land, and Smotrich wants to assert and cement Israeli control, Jewish supremacy on these lands. So the ultimate goal is to push away Palestinians from the land and take over and make Israeli settlers present on the ground. So the combination of that is like we have the military, the government and the Knesset promoting all these changes, and as Smotrich is saying, changing the DNA of the West Bank. And this is, I think, a very accurate description. And then we have the other side of violence on the ground with the support of the police, of the military. In many of the incidents, we see now settlers coming with armed soldiers, protecting them, even participating. Sometimes the military is the settlers now. since the war. So this is getting much, much harder to differentiate between who's a civilian, who's a soldier. And of course, we have Ben Gvir in charge of the police, making sure there will be no investigations. 94% of all investigation files of the police into settler violence are closed without any charges being pressed against violent settlers. So this is all tied up together. I think you said before, it's a lot happening. It's a lot to cover for us as well. So we wake up every morning for a lot of violent incidents that are happening, but we also have to deal with these new decisions and new procedures and new processes that the government is promoting. We have to quickly understand them. We have to quickly figure out what to do with them. And I think the opportunity to fight back is getting much, much more limited. I'll just give you an example. On the land registry, after the cabinet decision in the spring, we actually filed a petition saying it's illegal, and we asked the court, first of all, to announce it's illegal and order the state not to promote it, but also we asked for an interim order, which is meant to freeze the situation. We didn't get it, and the petition was denied just 2 weeks ago on the claim that it was premature. So, and then, when we will come back with another petition after they implement, they might say it's too late. So, and we had that in a different case just last week. So it's very hard to expect, I think, or not to expect, but to keep the hope that we can actually kind of halt these all processes. And I think it's very clear that Israel has chosen many years ago to go, on the route of annexation, and some would say even apartheid. But I think we are on a fast lane right now. So everything is moving very, very fast. I think Smotrich is really, and his partners, of course, Ben Gvir and Orit Struk, and even Netanyahu approves all of this. They don't know what will be after the elections. They see this year as a crucial year for them, and they are trying to get as much as they can done and to make a lot of the changes irreversible. So it will be a very big challenge, even if there would be a better government in the future. It will be much harder to go back. And of course, we don't want to go back. We actually want to go, to a better place, to a better future, and to secure all of the people who are living here. So I think they're trying to make it as impossible as they can. And Smotrich is saying it very clear. He wants the concept of a Palestinian state dead. That's what he's saying.
Thank you, Ziv. And definitely, we see a process that started long ago, but it's definitely a tectonic shift right now with the amount of it and the intensity of it and all that. So let me ask one more question before I go to audience questions. Some of them you answered. Owen Ziv on 972 said that the army doesn't even report the incidents anymore, meaning that the army usually has a report. This happened without a judgment, just army was involved in this happened, this kind of violence happened, and they don't do that anymore, meaning there's a erasure of this reality, both by the Israeli media, because the just public is not interested in that, and one of the questions about how do we reach the Israeli society, and the other one is the authorities themselves, even though the settlers are celebrating that, the more violent sections. So therefore, bearing witness to this and being with these communities becomes so much more important because there's not a lot of. So Amira, if you can speak a little bit about the very complicated work you do of protective presence and being there with the community, bearing witness, allowing international and Israeli Jews that choose to be with the communities, to witness it, to talk about it, to video about it, in order at least for the world to know, because we know that the pressure has to come from outside to slow this down or to stop it if there's enough pressure. So if you can talk a little bit about this work, its sensitivity, and how do we plug into this work?
Sure. So UCPiP came from an assessment report that we did in 2024 when we did a feasibility study about how effective and if it's needed even protective presence in the West Bank. When we did this assessment and report, we did find and counted around more than 24 different organizations and groups, and plus also other groups which are not like official organizations, but like are smaller groups and individuals who want to do this work. This work is not new in the West Bank. It has been done since years. And I remember me personally, I was part of the Smooth Solidarity Camp in Masafir Yatta in 2017, where we stayed 50 days in the caves with the community, because that's where they live. And the army put a firing zone where they live, so they were not able to go back to their caves, which were their houses. And we were there with them, tried to do everything, tried to talk with the government, with the authorities, with the IDF. And this is even before we had like settler violence, you know? It was direct with the government and with the IDF, before even Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, you know? And we were very successful in, you know, gaining some illegal stuff. The moment we left them, they were kicked out again. So like the whole system is corrupt. The whole system is based on one goal, is really emptying the land from Arabs. This is what it is. So we came, UCPiP came out with two recommendations that we need more people. From where to bring these people? If locals, and especially Israeli left-wing anarchists, whatever you want to call them, are sometimes are afraid, sometimes are too busy, sometimes they say, why would we care? It's some kind of like bunch of kids and that's it. It will go away, you know? So we need to bring internationals. And that's when we started recruiting for internationals who are not just volunteers and coming to do voluntary work, but they are professionals who did this work before. A lot of them did this work around the world, like in South Sudan, in Iraq, in Myanmar, in Philippines. And we recruit from those people and also from those who have experience also in the West Bank. And the moment we put the applications out, like we had lots of people applying. The other thing that we thought about in UCPiP, that this work shouldn't be just, again, a voluntary work. Because if you want to do protective presence, you just cannot come for 2 hours, 3 hours and leave. Then, you know, you will not be able to really protect the community you are protecting. So you really need to stay. And protective presence is built on relationship. So if we go to a community, I'm not going to show up to a community, tell them, hey, I'm going to do protective presence for you. They will tell me, go away. Who are you? You know, they will not trust me. But to build this kind of trust, we need to live with them, to live among them, to experience their daily life, their, you know, their difficulties. Share a table with them, you know, accompany their kids to schools. And that's where we thought, okay, if we want to do protective presence, no volunteers would come for like few days and go, only long term. And because of visa issues, of course, since 7th October, Israel has been limiting visa for any kind of international organization or internationals, like, you know, like the UN, like the EU and so on. Even embassies and consulates are limited for visas now. So we thought, okay, 3 months is the like tourist visa. We bring those people, we train them, we give them full training, 1 month training online. Then we do 1 week face-to-face training here in the land. And then we send them 3 to 4 days to do field training with those who are already there. So they have like 3 kind of trainings. And then they stay 3 months doing 24/7 protective presence. Of course, they have days off, so don't worry about that. And we thought, okay, those people are living their lives, are leaving everything, their jobs, so we need to give them some money. So we give them stipends. It's not a big amount, but it's something that they, when they go back after 3 months, they would have something in their pocket, you know, to continue their life, because we provide food, a place to live, transportation, and everything. What we found, when we started doing it with full internationals, that we are most vulnerable activists on the ground, because Israel, the IDF, the settlers would target internationals, they would deport them immediately. So we thought, okay, we need Israelis. So let's bring Israelis with us, because they have the privilege of having Israeli passport. So you are in the between the communities, and the IDF comes or the police come, you can face them. You have the right to protect yourself and talk to the IDF, and nobody will do anything. But still, even Israeli activists are being detained, arrested, beaten, attacked by the settlers, by the IDF. Just now, before I entered to the meeting, Arik Asherman, Rabbi Arik Asherman was arrested for a few hours, blindfolded, like the way they do with us as Palestinians when they blindfold us and they throw us in the trunk of the Jeep. The same way they treated Rabbi Arik Asherman, though he's Israeli, he's Jewish, and he's a rabbi. They don't have any kind of respect. For them, you are a traitor for your country, because you are protecting civilians. It's not about even Palestinians, it's civilians, people, just normal people who don't have anything. They are just, innocent people doing nothing, and you are trying to protect them. So this is how it is. But we are there, and we will continue. We will not stop. And we can't hear you, Gili. You are on mute.
Thank you. I gotta do one of those. Thank you, Amira. This work is so important. I can't stress enough how important it is. And there's a question about hope, and I want to say that MLK said that sometimes we walk the walk without knowing exactly how we're going to get to freedom and equality for all, but walking must. So we have a few questions on what Amira said to Ziv about the Israeli society, about what do they see, what they don't see, what they don't want to see, how would they listen to it? Do they see any of the connection between what's happening to Palestinians and what's happening to them in this kind of an authoritarian rise with the same characters of Smotrich and Ben Gvir? The police collapse in the West Bank, but it's also collapsing in Israel. So where's the Israeli psyche, and how do we reach it? I mean, a lot of people are curious. How do we talk to the Israeli society in a way that people can hear?
I'm going to divide the Israeli society, because obviously it's not the same. But if we're talking about the more liberal part of Israeli society, leaving the right wing or the extreme right wing aside for a minute, I think we have the few that are aware, that are following, that are going to protective presence or volunteering in Yesh and following what's happening, reading Haaretz. And then we had the vast majority of the liberal society who is actively unaware or doesn't want to know. And I'm saying actively because the information is there. So I always see, newcomers to the business, in quotes, of occupation, and they have this hope that if only people knew, something will change. And I think we've been carrying that thought for many, many years of the struggle or anti-occupation struggle. But I think it's not a matter of how much knowledge is out there, because the knowledge is out there. I think it's a matter of voluntarily not knowing or not wanting to know what's going on, voluntarily not connecting it to what happened to us or happening to us still, to the Israeli society at large, not connecting the people overall, for example, with the intentions of this government regarding the occupied territory. And there is a very strong connection there. Even trying to push away, the anti-occupation bloc from the demonstrations at the beginning. But even then, there was some kind of awakening, or started some kind of awakening, I think, as the protests went on and on. But I can't say, unfortunately, it's the majority of the society, and I am very saddened to say that the media is also complicit in that sense. It's very, very hard to push anything on what's going on in the West Bank in regards to the occupation, as we talk about policies and decisions. even in Haaretz, we have to struggle. And I know it sounds weird because Haaretz tends to cover these issues, but not as much as I think is relevant to what's really happening right now. So even there, a lot of the attacks, even the big ones, are not covered. A lot of the steps are not covered. I think the media also doesn't really understand things to its depth. So it's very kind of easy or superficial to report on this incident or this decision or this quote by Smotrich, but you don't give it a larger context of how all of these like dots are connected and where exactly are we going with this. So I think Israeli society is its head is really buried in the sand on this regard for many years, but it's much more evident and I think problematic right now. I have to admit I expected some awakening after October 7th. I thought people will now understand. And unfortunately, I'm disappointed on that front. Maybe it will happen at some point, but hasn't happened yet.
There was an extraordinary moment on the news like a week ago where Nadav Tamir, who leads J Street Israel, was on Ayala Hasson, one of the mainstream news broadcasts on public TV, and he said it's ethnic cleansing what's happening in the West Bank. And she said for ethnic cleansing to happen, you have to actually remove people. And he said people are being removed. She said, really? And she's the news anchor. And she
She said,
didn't
really?
know.
I would think she would shut him up.
She tried to, but she tried to really understand why is he saying what he's saying, which was a unique experience. So with the time we have left, first of all, thank you so much for this conversation. We have a question about, so what do we do? So what do we here in America do? And since we are, and Marga, you can come in for this last few minutes. Since we are here on the Kav, right? We are Partners for Progressive Israel. We are between Israel, Palestine, and America. That's our world. And we do try to navigate these tensions. I just want to say that it's not the job of Israelis and Palestinians to tell us here what we should be doing. We should be figuring out what we should be doing. You guys are under enough pressure to figure out day to day of this occupation and apartheid and ethnic cleansing. So one thing is to connect to you. So if you want to support, know what to do. Support Amira and Ziv, support Yesh, support, this is one of these, and support partners. Now, what do we here in America do? I mean, there's a couple of vehicles stuck in Congress that is good to talk to members of Congress about. Maybe we can do an email about all the American vehicles that are in play. Who do we pressure? Technically, Trump opposes this. He's against annexation because it ruins his peace plan. So there's got to be an opening. A bunch of Democrats wrote to him to say this is against your own interest to try to slow down these ethnic cleansing. So I don't want to pose this question to Israelis and Palestinians. I want to pose this questions to us here about what exactly we do, and maybe Rabbi Margot can talk a little bit about our work here, advancing within the American Jewish community, within Washington, within anybody with any authority, to stop erasing this reality, stop denying it, justifying it, minimizing it, the way the Jewish community does in the Israeli Jewish community and the American Jewish community. So one of those is to break the walls of silence. That's important in every space you are, with respect, out of love for Israelis and Palestinians, of course. And the other one is to nag your member of Congress to do more, to pressure more, to be more vocal, to speak up when these incidents happen. Rabbi Margot, maybe you have some additional thoughts about this important question of what do we do? How do we help?
Absolutely. Thanks, Gili. I'll share briefly. I posted in the chat, we actually released a guide earlier this month on concrete action steps that folks can take. And one method is to be loud, not only on the Hill, but also I would say your local and state government. More and more of these decisions are being made often at the state level, while there is deadlock in at the federal level, not actually unlike a lot of what we're seeing in Israel, where the municipality is happening, but also especially what Amira is lifting up in the chat right now. Narrative intervention is huge. There is a dominant narrative right in the Israeli media, but also in our home context. Gila, you just brought up with with the Dove Tamir, this, for ethnic cleansing, people have to be moved. People do not know that this is happening, and some of this is that they don't want to see. One of the things we highlighted in the guide, as well as the West Bank Prevention Act, and a number of other pieces of legislation that Americans can support, is actually the need to have longer and deeper and more emotional conversations, pulling out of sort of the world of deep canvassing. That sharing online is helpful, but it's the tip of the iceberg. The more we can deeply engage the people with whom we are in direct relationship in our synagogues, our Jewish community centers, your neighborhood organizing group is actually, especially if it's not Jewish, all Americans are have a call into this, and not just those in the Jewish community. But when we invite people into complication, share stories, and like actually engage emotion, it is much stickier. It's been proven, especially in conversations around human rights, that when we engage emotionally with stories, personally with people, that kind of narrative intervention, both at a large scale but also person to person, is what actually moves the needle for quite a few folks. There's other opportunities for learning and advocacy also that are advocacy that's in that guide. And Amira is also dropping some really fabulous stuff in the chat. We've also shared links from Yesh. But I would say like find your lane and get involved. We cannot sit this out.
And this has to do, we argue with your freedom. It's not just the collapse of the rule of law and rule-based order and any sense of morality and mass dehumanization that needs to happen in order to create this the cleansing affects all of us. It's part of a larger collapse that we all going to have to deal with. It's all interconnected. And the Palestinian struggle to stay on their land is our struggle. And to Karen's question about hope, it's an important question. What gives me hope is you guys, Amira and Ziv. You give me hope. Your work and your ability to hold that space gives me hope and gives me inspiration, and hopefully all of you. So really, thank you for being in this world, for doing this hard work. We're here for you, support you in any way we can. This is your home too. So thank you so much for being with us and inspiring us and educating us about this really extraordinary, difficult reality. There's other questions about how we get more Christians involved. How do we get more, all these questions, and we would love any input in how we get more communities involved, either in the land or here in America or anywhere around the world, to create pressure and the vision and of freedom and equality and safety for all people from the river to the sea. And we truly believe in this collective liberation. And we know that we need to start imagining and working much harder for the sake of all of us. So thank you so much. Appreciate everybody came, and I appreciate.
Dan, thank you, everyone. Toda, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gili, Amira, and Ziv, and thank you to everyone who joined us. I'll say we had over 100 people on this webinar. This is one of the largest partners webinars ever. Thank you all for engaging in this conversation. If you want to share with your friends or your wider community, the recording will be available online in a few days. Make sure you're on our email list and or subscribe to our YouTube page to be alerted as soon as it's available. For folks who missed the opening, I'll say again briefly, while today's program has been free, generous contributions are what enable this organization to deliver these kind of conversations at no cost. Please visit progressiveisrael.org, as well as Yesh and UCPiP. Check out upcoming programming, and if you can, please make a donation, especially I'll say for partners. All of our donations in the month of February are matched by a generous donor. Thank you again who's joined us today. We're really grateful to have spent this time together, and I really want to wish everyone a Chodesh Tov for the month of Adar, a meaningful start to the Lenten season, and Ramadan Kareem, Ramadan Mubarak. We're so grateful to have you all. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.